Say hello, Galilea. Say hello. Hey everybody, it is Super J here, and it is the unofficial special edition time for Super J's True Confessions from the Desert live with Super J, the millennials, the IJ centennials, the nieces, the nephews, the grandbabies. All of us are here, and you will hear them loud and clear in the background. Anyway, we were unable to do our normal time of True Confessions today because we had some special meetings, and the meeting actually just got finished maybe about a half hour ago with my son and I. So, this is my new great niece, everybody. This is little baby Catalea Rose. Say hi, Catalea. Hi, Catalea. Isn't she precious? But anyway, so the title for today, what we're talking about, Mentirosa, mentirosa. Liar, liar. Pants on fire. Woo! So, we have a couple topics that we wanted to talk about, and we're going to tie it into this mentirosa. I went somewhere. I went to a social gathering in a lounge, like a little club, and a Spanish-speaking gentleman, ooh, bless you, baby, bless you. Spanish-speaking gentleman tried to engage me. He and an older gentleman was with him. And it was pretty funny because they didn't speak very much English at all. So I should take this as an extreme compliment, but I speak a little Spanish, so enough to understand what he was asking me and what he was saying anyway. But I was trying to also tell him that I don't speak, I'm not fluent anymore. I used to be fluent. I studied abroad in Spain back in 1992, and I actually lived with the family. I was a foreign exchange student, and I lived with a family. And when I came back from Spain, I was actually fluent in Castellano. However, that means everybody can pretty much understand me because it's formal Spanish, but I don't really understand everybody. And now it's been so many years since I've used the language officially that I really lost a lot of my fluency. And so at the end of the day, the guy asked me a couple questions, and I think it was because he thought that I was this really, really young girl, okay? So the first question, after hello, how's it going, you're beautiful, he told me all of those things, you're such a beautiful woman, and then he straight out asked, could he have sex with me? I'm like, did you just ask me if you could have sex with me? Really? And so I was like, no. And then he began to introduce the older gentleman who was with him. He came over and he claimed that this is his father. Now, this guy, he was really handsome. He told me he's 34. So then he asked, he says, well, how old are you? And this is why I think, hey, Sean, this is why I think he thinks I was lying, and why he even thought he could walk up to me and ask, could he have sex? I don't know if the millennials, that's how y'all roll. I don't know. I've never had anyone straight out just walk up to me after hello, you're beautiful, you want to have sex? I'm 50, y'all. That's a first. But anyway, and I think it was because there was such a language barrier. He's like, I just need to cut to the chase. But anyway, he asked me how old I was, and I asked him how old his father, the gentleman with him, was. And he said the gentleman was 53. And I looked at him, I was like, oh, really? And so I told him, I said, well, I'm 50. I'm 50 years old. And immediately he was like, no, you're Spanish. That's the wrong number. And he's like, I'm 3'4". He held up 3 and 4. And I'm like, I'm 5'0". And so what made it really funny was because he started to get upset. Also, the little bit of Spanish that I do speak, you're right, you do have to work your way up to that, Sean. Here's the thing, the very little bit of Spanish that I do still speak, I do not have an English or an American accent. speaking Spanish. If I'm speaking Spanish, when I'm speaking Spanish, I pretty much sound like that could potentially be my first language for the little bit of limited vocabulary that I have. Anyway, so the guy was like, he got really mad. He was telling his dad, now I did understand this. He's like, first of all, she's a liar. You're lying, you're lying, you're lying. He called me a liar like 15 times. You're not that old. But then he started saying to the dad, like, she speaks Spanish. And she's trying to tell us she doesn't understand. She's trying to play coy. So this guy got really mad, right? So he leaves. He's like, well, you need to be with him. If you're that old, you should be talking to him. So he leaves me with the old man, the father. He's not old, the older gentleman. He goes off to this other group of young guys. This is so funny. And he begins to talk to this group of guys like, do not talk to her. She doesn't put out, and she's a liar. She's trying to convince us that not only does she not speak Spanish, but that she is not, that she's 50 years old. Oh, bless you, little baby Catalina. So I figured I'd title today's confession, since it's a little non-traditional, I figured I'd call it Liar, Liar. Mentirosa, mentirosa. Liar, liar, pants on fire. So, lies. Let's talk about lies. Hey, Cousin Charles, how's it going? Here's the thing. Everybody knows for a fact that I have a huge problem with lies. I have a huge problem with people who lie and the lies that they tell. Because in my opinion, lies are extremely damaging and could potentially be extremely dangerous as well. So I know that I've been called a lot of things in my day, but being called a liar really hasn't been one of them, especially since I got true confessions from the desert live, you know, and we've been doing that. We are at episode 62 or 63 now, but a little over a year where I decided, you know, it's about time to love unconditionally, not only myself, but love others and really work toward that. The one condition that I have, though, is that I absolutely have a huge issue with people who lie. Yes, I hate liars too, cousin. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about how damaging some lies can be. And we all know this, so it ties into our get out. All right, so I'm going to tell you guys a little story. What's wrong, little baby Catalina? Catalina needs to go to her mommy. Hold on. Cece, I think your baby wants you. You got to give her back to her mommy. There you go. We're talking about lies, you guys. This is Skylar. Skylar's back, everybody. She's been away for a while. Skylie Wiley has been in Phoenix area and in Arizona with her dad and that side of her family. But anyway, what was I going to tell you? Oh, I was going to tell you a story. There once was an individual, and you guys tell me if this constitutes as a lie or not, or if you think this is important or not. So there was an individual, it was a guy, a man, who got involved in a relationship with a young lady, right? And the girl was extremely open, extremely, impressionable to an extent, right? And she actually fell for this guy. The guy claimed that, you know, he had all kinds of love for her. He was, you know, doing all the right things, saying all the right things. But there was one very, very, very important thing that this guy was leaving out about his life. He was not being forthcoming. So it turns out that the guy made mention to this young lady that, you know, he prefers if she wore her hair a certain way, if she wore certain clothing a certain way, she needed to wear heels, and he had all of these preferences, you know, and he also told her that she should be responsible to pay for all the things that he likes. Now, so the young lady was a little confused. It's like, well, I don't have a problem, you know, she's like, I don't have a problem wearing this or doing that, but if somebody wants somebody is requesting something of me like that, something specifically, I would think he would be the one to make sure that I had what was necessary to make him happy, especially if it was something a little out of the ordinary. Anyway, as time went on, this young lady, she actually did a lot of transformation, physical transformation, and she also began to relinquish a little bit of her power to this guy, to the extent that if he called for her, or if he told her he needed her to go to this place or to that place, if he told her that he wanted her to accompany him to this place or to that place, meet with this couple or that couple, she would actually go, right? And so she was changing her life, right? Okay, I'm getting some messages over my conversation. Says, no, she was married. No, she wasn't married. I'm not talking about somebody who's married. And no, he wasn't married either. So as time went on, this young lady began to feel like she had fallen madly in love with this guy, right? And the guy, he was extremely intelligent, extremely handsome, but my personal opinion is that he was also extremely manipulative, okay? Now, at the end of the day, after several years, there were so many things going on in this relationship, off and on, and the girl could not figure it out. She just never quite seemed to be able to meet the acceptable standards for this guy, right? And so she kept saying, gosh, you're such an alpha male. The guy finally reveals to her, he's like, I am not an alpha male, I'm a dom. So, now, for those of you who understand what that is, D-O-M, dom, it means it's a dominant personality in pretty much the world of BDSM, okay? But his gig was not bondage, okay? It was not really even sadomasochism. It wasn't bondage. It was more power and control. All right? So after all these years, he reveals to her, who said a what? A dom, cousin, D-O-M. Look it up. In the world of BDSM, bondage, domination, sadomasochism, the dom, male or female, is the dominant personality. If you've seen 50 Shades of Grey, Christian Grey was the dom. But that lady, the older woman that was in the picture, the mother's friend of Christian Grey, was also a dom. She was a dominatrix, okay? And so this is the male version of the dominatrix. So this guy reveals that he's a dom. The girl is totally outdone because she's pretty independent, except, like I said, she was making a lot of these transitions and transformations. Now, do you think that it was a lie that this guy withheld this very important information and just kind of led her to believe that he was just having certain preferences and, you know, that this and that was okay, but I prefer, if you're going to be with me, that you do this, so and so forth, right? Well, come to find out, when the girl found out that he's a dom, she was actually kind of devastated. She was really pretty hurt because her thing was she understood that kind of a world, but she'd never been involved in that world. And she'd never had anyone that she had personally encountered who claimed that they were as such. Then she also understood that everything that she possibly could have been doing in the relationship was 100% the opposite, 90% the opposite, because she did make some transformations, about 90% the opposite of what a dom would expect. So the dom called her a wayward sub. He reduced her to a wayward sub. How in the world can you reduce somebody to a wayward sub when they don't know that they're supposed to be in the role of a sub? And how do you not reveal that you are a dom? How do you leave that out of a relationship? This goes back to our situation, guys, from last week. Get out. Know when to go. You got to know when to go. Okay. Now, here's my question. By withholding information that could drastically change, or no, he's not a weirdo, cousin. He's not a weirdo. That lifestyle is more prevalent, but actually he's pretty mild-mannered because he's not into bondage domination, and he's also not into torture. Okay? How many men do you know that actually work toward gaining ultimate control in a relationship? They just don't wear the title. Okay? But they think they're the Mac, they think they're the man, they think whatever this and that and the other. Okay, so here's what Cynthia says. She says, yes, a liar and the truth. Oh, he is a liar and the truth was not in him. He had vital information that was most necessary to be shared with her so she could make an informed decision. Now that's very good. Thank you, Cynthia, for sharing that. That is exactly how I feel. That's my big sissy Cynthia. That is exactly what I felt. Okay, so in my thinking and engaging this situation, I kind of looked at it like, okay, well, what do you do in this situation? Because now you have someone who has the persona and the thoughts of being a dom, and you have this partner who he considers to be a sub, but a wayward sub. Guess what happens to wayward subs, people? They constantly are punished, all right? They're either punished or they're dismissed. So with the girl, when she realized that various times throughout this relationship, she was constantly in a quandary because things would seem to go awry, right? And there'd be this, this issue where the guy would get upset and, just all kind of crazy stuff. And she never understood what it was. She began to think, well, maybe there's something that I'm doing that's terribly wrong, And I'm like, no, I don't think so. I think he's a liar. I think he's a liar. So, evaluate the situation. What do you do next? Okay, yeah, you've got feelings for this person, but if this person has lied about something, in my opinion, he lied, okay? In Cynthia's opinion, he lied. If he withheld that kind of vital information, what else is he withholding that could be detrimental, not only to her psychology or her psyche, but just her whole existence, like how she operates, where she goes, what she's doing. How vital is that? And so my thing was, you know what? You can end up and wind up in a real bad situation and a circumstance, and you don't even know that you're in one. So what happens when the dom decides that she is so wayward that he's no longer going to give verbal punishments or dismissive punishments, but he's going to now begin to be physical and give physical punishments? All right. Well, when that is consensual and that's kind of how y'all roll together, that's one thing. But when it is something that the other individual does not understand what's happening, that now is abuse. I'm sorry. I think it's emotional abuse from jump because you didn't disclose. But now you're getting into physical and emotional abuse. And that's a problem. Let's look at the social media. Cynthia said, power and ultimate control over another is bondage. Yes, that's true. Okay, so Cynthia's my expert on the world of BDSM. At least she's more of an expert than I am in some of the studies that she has done. So yes, power and ultimate control over another is bondage. Now, when we're talking about the bondage that she's talking about a mental bondage, and even maybe goes even deeper to getting into a spiritual bondage. And that is because at the end of the day, your will is not your own, even though you're not even understanding that your will has been tampered with. okay? And your thought process has been manipulated, that you are now being controlled on a level that you're not even aware of. How freaked up is that? I modified and I censored myself there, y'all. But how crazy is that? Then she goes on to say, it places the other individual in bondage. Playing the control mind games is not only manipulative, but also, thank you, there she goes, sadomasochistic. BDSM without a belt. Woo! Go ahead, Sissy Cynthia. BDSM without a belt. Without a belt, without a chain, without, cuffs, without swings, without cigarette lighters and cigarette burns, all of that. But yes, I agree with her. Kim says, wow, I've never heard of this stuff. I'm totally frightened. Don't be scared, boo-boo. It's not, look, this is one of the reasons that we do the confessions. One of the reasons that we do the confessions is to bring things to light, all right? Some of the stuff is very, very personal information and me divulging experiences that I've had personally. Some of them are not personally my issues or my experiences, but maybe somebody asked me to discuss a topic, for example, with the LGBTQIAP. I've gotten good with it now, y'all. I can roll them off. LGBTQIAP. Y'all know what all of that is? I just found out what all that is. So anyway, okay, now Cedric McCoy says it's all good fun. Hey Cedric, how's it going? Yes, long time girl. Absolutely. Listen, I kind of disagree with what you're saying in the context that we're talking about it right now, where you're saying it's all good fun. It's not good fun if one person is unaware of what's happening. If one person is unaware that someone is trying to manipulate their mind and ultimately their body, that's not all good fun, okay? Because you don't even have two consenting adults. You have one adult who is totally in the dark, being victimized as far as I'm concerned, and you have another adult who is, yes, very sadomasochistic, okay? And that means that they love inflicting harm on another. Yeah, he said, I came in at the end. You sure did. You kind of walked into that one, sir. But in other respects and in other types of circumstances, it absolutely is just what you said. And I don't even think anybody thinks it's fun. I think those who are involved in the world of BDSM, I think it is a need for them. I believe that some people do it for fun, but I think that it's a little bit deeper than that. I believe that it's a little deeper than a fetish. Cynthia says, yes, Cedric, it certainly can be fun when all parties are informed and in agreement. Otherwise, the preponderance of abuse is present. Exactly. This is the same thing as when you have, say, for example, an older individual, we can say male or female, it doesn't matter, who kind of preys on a younger individual, okay, younger, much, much less mature individual. And we're not saying, I'm not saying like a school teacher to a kid. I'm not saying that young, but let's say you have a 45-year-old and a 20-year-old. Someone's not quite 21 yet, 19, 20. And you have this 45, 50-year-old individual basically engaging this 19 or 20-year-old and setting stipulations, setting boundaries, and basically creating a circumstance and a need of control, a situation where that individual ultimately becomes somewhat dependent on them. This is another place and time where I say, boo-boo, get out while you can. Because what we're going to find is the common denominator, and I could just go on and cut to the chase a little bit, It has to do with power, all right? It has to do with control. And when you have this insatiable need for power, control, and dominance, guess what you become? Dangerous. You're so dangerous. Yes, I say, Molly, you're in danger, girl. And I'm giggling about it because I'm listening to my brain say all these different things in my head, and it's kind of funny. But it's not really that funny. It really is problematic, and it's a very volatile, potentially volatile situation. Cedric says the need of control. They usually have no control in their day, in their daytime lives, but need that control in their nighttime life. Not true. It's actually the opposite. See, so you must not be in the world of BDSM. You must just have your stereotypes and thoughts. Actually, the true doms and dominatrixes and those who, usually the subs, often have a whole lot of control. And that's what their problem is. We're talking judges, lawyers, doctors. We're talking these kinds of people that everyone sees, of course, as perfectly legitimate, wonderful, staples in the community, but they have ultimate power. Some doctor has power in their mind of life and death, okay? Judges, same kind of outcome. You have the power to control someone's life and death, okay? And so they need to relinquish that power. So they actually end up on the opposite end of the BDSM scale oftentimes. They become the subs. The people who have power don't usually become doms or dominatrixes. Okay? So, he says, I will leave that confession for another time. Okay, if you're in the world of it, then you have to share, because honestly, the profile generally is a little bit opposite of what you're saying. Now, we're not saying that's 100% exclusive, but if you start looking into statistics of who many of these people are, many of them are very senators, congressmen, very powerful individuals in the mind's eyes of the community and society at large, okay? And so, what's wrong, Skyly Wiley? Okay, which food? So, in essence, they have to relinquish some of that. And guess who usually they choose as doms or dominatrices? Who do you think, Cedric? Who do you think the doms are? Male or female? What kind of profile? Tell me. Because you should know this one. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Yes, you guys guessed it. The athletic female bodybuilders, athletic female people, athletic males often. How do I... etc., etc. Yes, females. Oftentimes they're females. But here's the funny thing. It doesn't have to be female. It is not gender specific. This is one of the things I learned in my studies. It is not gender specific. It is not age specific. It is not ethnicity specific. It can be a combination of any and all of that. And it's not necessarily having to do with orientation, like sexual orientation. So for example, a male can be a dom over another male, and it's not a homosexual thing. A female can dominate another female, and it's not a lesbian thing at all. So it has nothing to do with that stuff. It has to do with the need to dominate and the need to be dominated. Isn't that special? Female muscle worship is very big. We have a whole confession. I think it's number 9 is muscle worship. Super J's True Confessions, episode number 9. Cynthia says, get out while you can. But what do you do when you know you need to do something, i.e. get out, but you don't know what, how, when, or where to do it? Get out holistically, safe. Mind, body, soul, emotions, spirit, and spirit. You may just need a Harriet Tubman or a Frederick Douglass to get you out through an underground railroad. Hashtag real talk. You know what? Keeping it on the real, that is true. In the particular example that I was speaking to you guys about of the young lady, she actually recognized for herself that the type of relationship that she actually had engaged in was in, and it was abusive, guys. It really is abusive. She had been in it for over 5 years. And it wasn't until that, after that 5th year, things going to the 6th year, when it was revealed to her that the guy is a dom, and that the reason he was inflicting these punishments on her was because in his mind she was a wayward sub. In other words, he didn't have control over her. Bottom line, he did not have control over her, and he didn't like that fact. And so, you know, there it went, and there it was. So at the end of the day, what did this person do? Well, she had the strength to literally walk away, and that's what she did. She walked away, she broke free, and while she still cares, you know, she cares about the individual, cares about his well-being, she just recognized all of his double standards, you know, like he's allowed to do whatever the heck he wants to do, but if she did half of that stuff, he's like totally pissed off at her and just going through changes, right? So she recognized the disparity. She recognized that, yeah, this is not quite cool. And when he finally revealed what he actually was, she was like, this is something that's not acceptable for her. And so I commend her for being able to walk away from that. But everybody is not able to walk away. And that's where Cynthia's issue about get out where you can, when you can, but how do you do it if you don't really know what, how, or when, where, all of that stuff. This is where sometimes you may need some assistance. And it really depends on the nature of the type of relationship you're in and the nature of the danger, the nature of the abuse. The situation with this young girl, this young lady, she was not in danger physically. In fact, she's probably, well, I won't say she's much stronger than the guy, but there was never any real physical altercation opportunity. But she was in danger emotionally, okay? Emotionally, she was very fragile because she began to think there was something wrong with her. When I see that, and when I hear that, when I recognize that, and even when I feel that, I like want to hit somebody. And I'm not just violent. It's like, you know, hit me so I'll understand. You know, somebody said that once, slap me. I had to slap her so she would understand. I just sometimes like want to, you know, especially because I see it as bullying behavior. In this instance, this particular dom, I feel like it's the same as being a bully, but you were just a manipulative bully. You know, you were bullying in a different kind of way. But at the end of the day, you were all about yourself, very narcissistic, out to get what you wanted out of the situation. So what happened? This girl gets out, right? And everything is cool. And ironically, she ends up in a relationship with someone who is much more liberating, much more giving, understanding of her mindset, her needs, and you know, they actually had a lot of similar needs. And but it just so happened that this person was actually pretty close to the individual that she had already been in a relationship with. So they were friends. So it becomes very interesting now to watch. But it seems like everybody's happy, everybody's free, nobody's tripping. Of course, the one who's the dom is absolutely undone. You know, he's like, yeah, he has to cut everybody off, and you know, well, because he doesn't have control. That's his thing. You have to have control. So that one was easy. Sometimes they're not so easy. Sometimes you're so psychologically bound to the individual. Sometimes there are children involved. And so there's such a huge emotional tie or a soul tie. In those circumstances and in those situations, in my opinion, and anybody can chime in if you want, but in my opinion, where there are children involved, my desire, my quote unquote need to be controlled or to have this soul tie or whatever becomes very minimal. When you have children involved, now the responsibility is to making sure the environment is conducive, consistent, and safe for the babies. It's all about the babies. Thank you, whoever sent me all those thumbs up. It's about the babies. And so now it becomes very difficult because if you remain in that type of a situation, everybody's vulnerable. It's not just, quote unquote, the male or the female who may be suffering abuse, physical abuse, mental abuse, volatile circumstances. It's not just them. Now the children are right in the middle of that, guys. They're right in the middle. Sometimes I've heard of cases where one of the caregivers, parent, whatever, they may actually have a child in hand, holding a child, holding a baby, whatever. And when that other individual kind of snaps, they're not caring that there's a child there. Their goal is that they need you to do what they want, how they want, when they want right now. And so they go through not only what barriers may be between you and them, him or her, but they go through the babies too. It's dangerous, y'all. You've got to wake up. You've got to get help. If you can't let them go yourself, you need to reach out for help. Okay? Cynthia said, get out in a holistic way. Well, the only way it can be holistic is that as you exit this relationship, there is complete closure. Okay? And when I'm saying closure, I'm not talking about with that individual. Closure with yourself. You have to know that you know that you know what you know, that this is the thing that must happen, regardless of how you feel about it. Sometimes feelings don't mean a thing. Yes, Miss Schuyler, how can I help you? Was that pizza? What do you want to say?
I'm full.
You're full? Okay, well, why don't you take that into the kitchen and you can set it down and maybe eat it later.
Okay.
Okay. That's my Skyly Wiley, guys. She's been away from me for about 8 weeks. I missed my Skyly Wiley. Okay. And she's here with her cousin Bent Bent. You want to put yours away too, Bent? Okay, you take it in the kitchen. They're so cute. So yes. All right. Good night, cuz. Good night, cousin Charles. Love you. All right. So, and Cedric has to go night too. I know you guys are on the East Coast. Night. Cousin Charles is out here in Phoenix with me. You got to go to. You got school in the morning? I don't remember if Phoenix has already started. All right. I will see you online soon, girl. Keep posting and keep up the good work. Thank you, Sed. I hope all is going well with you. I know that you had gone through many transitions and transformations yourself in the positive, especially in taking care of yourself physically, mentally, and all that good stuff. So I commend you on that. And we will be in touch. Smooches. All right. So, for the rest of you, let me... Uh-oh.
You can't give her the pillow, baby.
Let's see.
I know you're trying to put it under
If
her
I got
head,
all
but
these.
she's okay. So that's what I normally do when I promise.
Okay, so I've kind of covered most of the comments there. If you guys have any questions or if you have any comments that you want to address in this particular stream, please feel free. I don't have the millennial or the millennial Jonathan or the iGen Centennial Schuyler with Yakira with me today. Yakira's at home and we're not. Jonathan is actually out here with me, but he is occupied right now with his cousins. They are taking care of some very serious business in the kitchen. So I'm here left by myself. Once again, it's been a while, but we needed to address the Get Out situation, Get Out number 2. So Liar, Liar, and Get Out, I think they kind of coincide with each other, and are connected in many ways. The next issue, is this a lie when, okay, let me ask this one. This is going to get touchy to my LGBTQIAPs, but probably just the T's. Is it a transgender individual's responsibility to reveal that they are transgender when they are getting into a relationship? And if they fail to do that, are they lying? Now, this can be, it doesn't matter which gender. It doesn't matter if you were male and you transitioned into a female, or if you were a female and you transitioned into a male. Is it your responsibility to share that you're transgender? And if you don't, are you lying? Are you presenting a lie? Now, the reason I say this one is touchy is because if the whole transformation has been complete physiologically, theoretically, you're not dealing with what you had before. Physiologically, you are now dealing with, if it was a male to a female, you're dealing with a female now. If it is a female to a male, you're dealing with a male now. The issue that I'm bringing this up for was because something was brought to my attention. I was speaking with a military personnel, and he made the comment, he was like, I have no issue with LGBTQIA LMNOP. You know, he didn't have an issue, but he felt that there could be very, very unfair advantages, or in vice versa, disadvantages. So for example, you have a transgender male turning into female, but he has not necessarily completed his transformation. Well, for all intents and purposes, the way I understood it from this military personnel, once they have been identified as female, it does not matter that they have not completed all of their transformation, so they may still have their male genitalia. All right? So is it fair for that transgender female who has male genitalia to go into the showers, have to share bunk, and have to share everything else? Is it fair to the other women in there? Now, well, what if you have a transgender who did complete the transformation? Well, that's considered a female. What about vice versa? And this is, I think, what he was kind of saying. When you have a female who is transitioning into a male, is it cool to have this male who has the female genitals or genitalia still? Is that right for them to shower, and all with the males that are there? Is that fair to the male who's not transgender or trans anything? Does that make them uncomfortable? Should that be a consideration? And so at the end of the day, I thought that was really worth kind of exploring. Me personally, I'm kind of split, I think if I'm a female and I have completed my transformation, like if I'm transgender and I've turned into a female, that's how I identify and that's what I am. I don't really know if it's important to know that I was born with different genitalia. But I don't know. Somebody from LGBTQIAP needs to tell me. And people keep asking what the P is. They're like, well, shoot, they was asking what the QIA was last week. And I've added the P because somebody told me I forgot the P. LGBTQIAP. Lesbian, bisexual, gay, LBG, transgender, queer, intrasexual or intersexual, asexual, poly, or pansexual. Now, I want to make a stipulation and a very, very, I want to qualify. Poly and pan are not the same, okay? Someone who is polyamorous is not the same as someone who considers to be pansexual. I warn, or I tell people who do claim to be pansexual to be very careful and understand what they may be saying and how some people will perceive that, because pan means all. Okay? You have no distinction. You can be sexual with everything. Pansexual, including all in many respects, also includes zoophilia. Look it up. Don't get mad at me. Don't say I'm just trying to minimize or I'm trying to make you a freak. No. Pan means all, every, any. And if you actually know what a pan looks like in Greek mythology, you know what a pan is? What's a pan, John? What's a pan look like? Half goat, half man. So, if you are a pansexual, that was one of Jonathan's issues. Like, why are they calling themselves a pansexual? Do they know what a freaking pan is, first of all? And then, do they understand the definition of pan? So, if you're pansexual, that means you have sex with pans. On one level. That means goats. That means cows. That means zoophilia. It means animals, people, okay? So I would never say that I am pansexual. I am not universally sexual with any and everything. And that's pretty much what pan means. Poly just means many. All right? So, and it doesn't necessarily mean many sexual partners either, by the way. To be polyamorous means you have the ability to love many people at the same time and be in very intimate relationships with more than one person at a time. I use the example that, in my opinion, God is the epitome of polyamorous, okay? And y'all can argue it with me all day long, but John 3:16 says, "For God so loved the world that he gave." For God so loved the world that he gave. All right? So for me, that means he was loving a whole lot of folk at the same time. And that is the example that you can love more than one person. In fact, I think it's unnatural to love just one. I don't even know how you do that. You love your children, you love your, you guys get the gist. My point is, I'm not trying to minimize it. I'm not trying to be cute with it. But I just believe that it is natural to be able to have your heart, your mind open to loving life and individuals, okay? And that's more than one. Also, in a polyamorous relationship or polyamorous world, no one is jealous. There's no jealousy there. There's just understanding, okay? A lot of love and a lot of understanding. And who knows, there may be sexual encounters amidst, the many. There may be no sexual encounters, okay? It's not necessarily just indicative of sexual practice. So technically, the P is part of that community. So when I was accused of being a bigot a few weeks ago, I'm like, you guys forget, Super J is polyamorous. I'm part of the freaking community. I'm not a bigot against myself, first of all, and I'm not a bigot against anybody else. So I don't have to prove that. I don't have to, but I'm just making that statement. It's like, call somebody else that, because probably doesn't fit here. You know what I mean? Next, let's look, social media. This information is making a lot of sense from previous relationships. Okay. Kim, if you'd like, you can expound, you can give us, you can, share with us. That's perfectly fine. But I will tell you this. Someone asked me just recently why I'm not married. And I said, because I love men. And the guy was very confused. He's like, "You're not married because you love men?" I'm like, "Absolutely. I am not married because I love men." More than one. Okay, so I can't see myself being married right now. Doesn't mean, because I am polyamorous. I'm extremely polyamorous, and I finally understood that, and I finally accept that of myself, and I'm not mad about it. And I don't really care what anybody else thinks about it. Honestly, I have to be true and honest about me, who I am, because I'm the one who has to walk in my skin, and I'm also the one who has to answer to God about me. I don't have to answer to anybody else, and either do you. All right. Someone asked me recently about my son Jonathan, someone that I have begun a very, very close relationship with, and he said, "Does Jonathan know that? Does he know about us? Does he know that we talk to each other? That we're, involved in, a relationship here?" And I said, "Yeah." I said, "But why'd you ask about Jonathan? I've got 2 kids. Why'd you only single out Jonathan?" And his response was that he needed to make sure that the young lion had no issue with the older lion apparently trying to push up on his mama. And I made the comment, I said, "Listen, my children not only know who I am, but they understand who I am. They understand that I have lived a very respectful and respectable life, and I've lived a great example in front of them, but that I also encourage them to be who they are, be true to themselves. And why am I going to tell them that and I'm not true to myself? Why would I do that?" And so I haven't. I have encouraged them, and they've gone along with it. So I'm very proud of my children. But in me explaining that to the gentleman, he was like, he thought it was kind of cute and kind of funny. I was like, "No, if you were going to have a problem with one of them, though, it wouldn't be Jonathan. It would be Yakira." Yakira is the one who has she's kind of a little bit more hypersensitive and a little bit more protective of her mom. Much more protective than Jonathan, but that's probably because Jonathan understands his mom a little bit better and is coming from a different, older, a little bit more broad perspective. So, yeah. So what does that mean, and what does that look like in my household? Well, if you ask Jonathan will say he's polyamorous too. And he's like, "And I got it from you, Mommy." And I'm also an exhibitionist. Both my kids are that. I almost have to beat them into submission and putting clothes on to do the daggone confessions. That used to be me when I was younger. My mom used to tease and say, "Jill, you're an exhibitionist. You are just an exhibitionist." That was at 12. I didn't get the gist of it till I got older. Now I understand what it means. But I'm sorry for so much movement, guys, in this video. I'm in a little chair that spins, so I have to either keep my feet down and very sturdy, or I'm going in circles like this. So I apologize if some of you guys need Dramamine now. I'm very dizzy. All right. Anyway, moving right along. The last thing that we will link into, since we've talked about a little bit of the Get Out, since we've talked a little bit about the LGBTQIAP, the sexual concern there, it's not necessarily a sexual issue. Are we lying if we don't have complete disclosure? What happens and how much disclosure should be held? Because I don't necessarily believe that you should have to have complete disclosure of everything, but of very important things that can determine the outcome of someone's life based on their interaction with you, and you withholding that information. I think that's always the thing to do. It is always the responsible thing, disclosure in that area. All right, getting back into the poly versus pan. Somebody told me to give them an example of how I am personally polyamorous, because I insist that It is not a sexual, it has nothing to do with a promiscuous lifestyle or just, mentality. When I say I love men, I love people, first of all. There are certain people I love. I need to qualify that. But the ones that I love, I really love. And most of the time it's pretty unconditional. And I say most of the time because sometimes there are things that I'm not aware of. And so if I'm not aware of something, I can't say one way or the other if I'm okay with it, plain and simple. But an example of my polyamory is that I have a lot of friends that are male. In fact, the majority of my friends are male. I am very open and honest with each and every male individual that I encounter. But here's the thing. Most of my male friends have been friends with me for years. Thus, they are much, much closer. They are more intimate, all right? It has become more of a special bond and special relationships. And so I go out on dates with some of my friends, not all of them, but some of them. We don't have problems going out together. I don't have a problem kissing some of my friends. I might even go further than a kiss with some of them. But they all understand that we are dear friends and that we are not in any exclusive relationship. And many of them are aware of another one of them, okay? And I'm aware of, some of their partners or, friends. I call them friends. Some people might call them partners. I don't call them partners because they're not my partners. They're my friends. Partners, I feel like you're there with them all the time. They may be living in, or you guys are just together in everything that you do, and it's just how you guys roll. That's not necessarily how it is with me. I might see one male that I am crazy, deeply, have deep, intimate feelings, strong relationship. I might see that person once a year. I might see another one 10 times a year. I might see another one every 2 weeks. All right? And I don't have any of them that are in my house that I see every day. So I don't think it'll ever get to that because you never know who's going to show up at my house. It might be the once a year guy. It may be, the every other week guy. And I know that sounds bad, but that's because you guys got dirty minds, all right? I just said these are my friends. I not once mentioned did I have sex with any of them, okay? I said that I kiss some of them, and I might go a little further than a kiss. It's a whole lot of space between a lot further and sex, okay? So you just let your mind run wild with that. I'm just going to leave that. I'm going to let that sit right there and let it marinate. Y'all can think about that for a while. But yeah, so that, in my opinion, I have these relationships. I feel like they are very strong relationships. I feel like they are very reliable relationships. And I cannot and will not and would not choose one relationship over another one or one at the expense of another. All right? So what does that mean? That means I have them all simultaneously. All right? Which means what? It says what? I'm freaking polyamorous. Okay? That's what it means. All right? So, and it's worked. When I was trying to deny who I was and didn't understand really who I was, and I didn't have a label for what I was, that's when I had problems. That's when I had problems in relationships. When I was trying to fit into this little box or this little mold of what somebody told me I should be, that's when I had the problems. Once I came to an understanding and an acceptance of who I am, it does not change my heart. It does not change whether I am a good or bad person. It doesn't change that. I believe I'm a good person. I believe that I've tried to do the best to encourage, inspire, motivate, and support as many people as I can. I released my own personal autobiographical submission into a book that, reveals a lot of personal and painful things about me, lots of secrets. Somebody asked me recently, they said, well, what skeletons do you have in your closet? And I said, you know what, I'm going to tell you the truth. Every last skeleton that, yeah, right? Every last skeleton that I had in my closet, I pulled out the closet and threw in that book. Lessons Beneath the Mask, y'all, From Pain to Promise. Foreword by Les Brown, authored by Ruel Barksdale. All right? Lessons Beneath the Mask, From Pain to Promise. My autobiographical submission was written. I wrote it and I submitted it. And it probably chronicles about the first 25 years of life. So my first quarter. I've gone a whole nother quarter since then. So the rest of the story will be from there up to where I am now. And there's been, there's always more details that you could put in it. But the point is, when he asked, well, what skeletons do you have in your closet? I'm like, dude, I used to have a whole lot. I had a whole freaking community. I had Ghost Town, USA up in my closet. But there's something liberating in freeing yourself from the bondage of fear. And that fear being the fear of judgment, the fear of the fact that someone might not accept me. I don't have that fear. I don't walk in that bondage. I keep saying it every day. What you think about me is none of my business. So it's what I think about me that's important. Is what I believe God thinks about me is even more important. And so that's how I walk and live and try to have my being. And I try to keep that up front as much as possible. I try to be as honest with everybody that I can. Does that mean complete disclosure the first moment I meet you? Absolutely not. I don't think that's appropriate. But as we begin to engage and develop a friendship and have a relationship, I think that if you ask me a question, I'll answer the question. That's an easy one for me. If you don't ask, I may not disclose that if it's something that does not affect you or our relationship as far as knowing that information changing something one way or the other. But the truth of the matter is, whatever, you can ask me anything. Sorry I missed you. Dozed off. I'm an old dude. That's Deacon. Let me let him know we're on right now. That's funny. All right. But anyway, so all I can say is, going back to the premise and the whole foundation of what the True Confessions were for, self-acceptance, self-love. This is True Confessions from the Desert, live with Super J, the Millennial, and the iGen Centennial, where nothing is off limits and nothing is taboo. I have learned to live by that. We don't judge. We are in a judgment-free zone. I don't judge you. You won't openly judge me, because as soon as you do, you're going to probably get shut down by a couple folk. But you can judge me in private. You can judge me in private all day long. But I'm not going to judge you, and 9 times out of 10, nobody really judges me on here, because they know I don't care anyway. I think it takes the power away from the person who's trying to control you with the fear of judgment when you don't care. This particular, that individual that I was talking about earlier, this young girl who, or this girl who was involved in the relationship with the Dom and didn't know it, and when she found out, she decided to bounce and then started seeing the Dom's like good friend. She didn't care. She didn't care about what he thought, and as much venom or whatever he had to throw at her, she didn't care, and I applaud her for that. You stand up for who you believe you are, and you have confidence in everything that you stand for. Does that mean that I believe that I have all the answers and I think I am the one, that I am all knowledgeable, all powerful? Absolutely not. Just like I told that guy who said, can he have some sex with me? Can I make sex with you? Absolutely not. The joke was, I said, well, if you can ask me that question in English, I will consider it. Knowing he couldn't speak English at all. I'm like, if you can ask me that in English, I might consider it. Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir. Skylar's doing what? Okay, tell her to come out here. Go tell Skylar to come here. You want to go tell Skylar to come here? So Bentley came out here to tell on Skylar for something. I don't know what. Okay, well, tell your mommy, okay? Go tell your mom. All right, guys, listen. I want it to be true to having the confessions. This was a very, very... what's going on? Okay, so I think we got to get ready to go. Somebody fell. Somebody fell in there. Okay. Anyway, this has been an incredibly stimulating environment for Super J's True Confessions from the Desert. Much has gone on while I'm trying to do this stream. I appreciate all of those of you who have been considerate, kind, and have hung in there with us. This was episode, I think we're at 62, maybe 63. I'm starting to lose count now, and part of that is because I've been out of town the last couple of confessions, so I've just got a lot of stuff going on. But keep us in your positive thoughts, keep us in your prayers. I'll be doing the same to you. I really appreciate you guys. We will probably be reconvening in our I'm praying that we reconvene in our normal platform on next Sunday, and we will have Yakira, the iGen Centennial, and we will have Jonathan, the Millennial, and we will do it all again. Thank you guys so much. Have a wonderful evening and a great week coming up. Smooches, everybody. Bye.